What aguan, my people, me brethren, me sistren, me gente out there. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the Tuesday edition of Burn It Down with Kim Brown. I'm so happy and excited to see y'all's very specific smiley faces all up in the place. Of course, you guys know Burn It Down with Kim Brown is a safe space where we set oppression ablaze. We got to burn shit down, because if we don't burn down oppression, oppression is going to burn us. So it is so important that we absolutely take time to bring you the stories, to highlight the people that are out here doing the work, to make sure that we as humans, we as workers, we as people out here are able to live our best human lives in the most humane way possible. So I want to thank you all so much for all of your support, for all your love. What's going on? What's up, Northern Witch? What's up, Chuck Diesel? What's up, Rain to Sud? We got some new faces up in here. Mocha Witch is up in here. Big Teal is up in here. All my people up in here. So happy to see you all. Don't forget, gang, if you're able to, please go around the internet and follow us places. We are on Twitter at Burn It Down KB. Give us a follow there. And subscribe here. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at BIDWKB and just all the different places that you are able. Guys, we have a great show in store for you today. Today, we are going to be talking about the people that put in work, right? And at the bottom of the program, I want us to talk about those Texas legislators who I thought very bravely abandoned the special legislative session that was happening in Texas in order to make it known that the voting restrictions about to be passed by the Republican-controlled legislature and signed into law by Texas Governor Greg. Oh, sorry. Okay. Texas Governor Greg Abbott. It was wrong, right? Of course, it was wrong for those laws to be trying to, get passed. However, when Democrats in Congress say we can't do anything, we're sort of stuck sitting on our hands. Look at those Democrats in Texas. Now, granted, I don't know what the end result of their action is going to be, but damn it, they did something, right? They didn't just sit there and do nothing. They did something, and we're going to talk about that. Also, yesterday, it might have flown slightly under the radar, and Susan, thank you, darling. Thank you, Susan, so much. We love that Danish kroner. I'm so glad you caught us live also. It might have flown under your radar a little bit, but yesterday Joe Biden had a meeting at the White House with a lot of black and brown elected officials, some mayors, some other folks talking about the issue of gun violence. Now, at my big age of damn near 43 years old, America's been talking about gun violence my whole damn life, and it does not appear. So America is any closer to solving the gun violence problem than they are now. But the problem is Jim Crow Joe is in office. And if we remember when Jim Crow Joe was allowed to spearhead the war on drugs, Jim Crow Joe aimed his radar directly at black and brown people. And my concern is that this brand new war on guns is going to be the old war on drugs, right? Where white people were allowed to use drugs pretty much without impunity, whereas black people filled up the jails and prisons. And I think it's going to be very similar. White Americans are going to be able to own guns without impunity, and yet black people who are either gun owners or gun carriers, because again, simply possessing a gun is not a violent act, right? And this is America. We have as many guns in America as we do people, probably more. So I need a better solution than we're gonna distribute a task force, 5 task forces across the country to get the guns. Sir, I'm gonna need some better ideas coming out of this Biden White House. But you guys, to begin the program, we got to celebrate some news. I'm talking about some good news. If you're a worker out here, if you're an unemployed worker out here, man, what has happened this week should give you a wee bit of encouragement. Okay. If you guys remember some weeks back, we looked at a story out of Indiana because the governor of Indiana, the Republican governor of Indiana, as did a lot of other Republican governors across the country, ended the federal supplement unemployment insurance of $300 a week to unemployed workers, right? Ended it. Workers sued in Indiana. And this week, the Court of Appeals ruled that workers in Indiana will be able to get that federal unemployment insurance subsidy back to them. Okay. They have not had it since really the beginning of June, right? So those payments are going to be reinstated. The Indiana Department of Labor speculates that perhaps those payments could resume as early as Friday, which is wonderful news for Hoosiers out there. And so we wanted to say thank you and congratulations to the diligent workers of Indiana who are going to get the money that they are owed. And today, guys, in my home state of Maryland, we had some similar news come out of a Baltimore area court. So Larry Hogan, who is garbage personified, he's such a bad governor. Maryland, we have a tendency to have these bad governors, Democratic or Republican. These fellas are just not good people. But anyway, Larry Hogan, being beholden to business interests in this state, told unemployed Marylanders that the federal unemployment subsidy would be ending July 3rd. Workers got together and sued the governor. He appealed and a ruling was given today. And we're here to talk about that ruling. Basically, it's that Maryland unemployed people get to keep their $300 federal subsidy through the end of the program, which is slated to end September 6th. But the fact that he was going to cut it 2 months early in the middle of summer, while the pandemic is still pandemicking, and all these jobs that these governors and business people claim are out there are not quite as out there as they say. But guys, I want to bring in our guest today who is joining us to talk about this development in Maryland where Marylanders can keep their federal money. We're joined today with Roxie Herbekian. Roxy is the president of the Unite Here Local 7 union based in Baltimore, and her organization, actually members of her organization, were the plaintiffs in the lawsuit against Maryland Governor Larry Hogan. And Roxy is joining us today. Roxy, thank you so much for making some time. And let me say congratulations. We all celebrating today, but congratulations to the Unite people in Baltimore. We are so happy.
Thank you so much, Kim, and thanks for having me on your program. This is a great program. You've got great energy. I can't believe we haven't come across each other before. This is great, and this is a great.
I'm happy to be coming across you now, Roxy, because let me tell you, I was in a level of distress when Larry Hogan announced in June that he was going to be ending the federal subsidy for unemployed Marylanders. And of course, you know, we had seen a bunch of Republican governors do this across the country. And perhaps it's foolish of me to think that Hogan wouldn't go that route, but he absolutely did. Talk to me about what was at stake for workers, because I can tell you what was at stake for me personally, because I was receiving the unemployment benefit, and when I heard it was getting cut off, I was forlorn. I was very upset. But my situation is quite different. I mean, there are people out there with families, people out there who are on the risk of houselessness. What were people expressing to you when it was first announced that the governor was going to end the $300 weekly federal subsidy for unemployed people?
So people have been panicked. And I just want to say too, you know, Hogan's been talking about this as though it's just the $300 a week. It's actually much worse than that. There's a lot of people who've been unemployed since March of 2020. They're past 26 weeks. For them, it would have meant cutting off benefits entirely, not just the $300. And it would have cut off all the benefits for gig workers, for contractors, for small business owners that were getting benefits under the federal programs. Basically, he wanted to cut all the federal programs 2 months early. So as you said, he wanted to cut those July 3rd. We were part of a group organizing a lawsuit against him. We were inspired by what they did in Indiana, and we worked with the Public Justice Center, which is another group here in Baltimore, to say, hey, what can we do? Because people were planning on those benefits through September 6th. And a lot of places still are not recalling folks back to work. It's not true that there's just jobs everywhere. Sometimes there might be a job across the state, but you know, you have no way to get there. So people were super panicked and worried about paying their rent, getting evicted, putting food on the table. I mean, we're talking a lifeline here that money provided to a lot of families.
Listen, Roxy, when you say that people were counting on that money through September 6th, I'm people. I too was counting on that money through September 6th. And was horribly disappointed. But I wanted to seize on a point that you just made regarding the jobs that are available. And part of the governor's argument in court, from what I understand, was that it was being relayed to him through small business owners in Ocean City, Maryland, right? The resort town in our state, but it is hours away from the population centers of Maryland. It takes 3.5 hours to get to Ocean City from Central Maryland. So, okay. But Hogan was saying that, small business owners, mom and pop stores are not able to find workers in Ocean City. And it sort of harkens back to this governor's priorities in general. He seems to prioritize business owners for one, but also, the more rural parts of the state for two, and giving very little regard for things like the cost of living in Central Maryland, the price of food, transportation, all these things, and was so willing to arbitrarily end those benefits for people. When the governor appealed the first decision to keep the benefits in place, I think it was a temporary restraining order that Unite was able to get to prevent him from throwing people off the benefits wholly on July 3rd. When he appealed, what was your thoughts? Like this governor was seemingly just so determined to proceed with this cruelty that he would continue to fight this in court.
I think when he made the decision to cut benefits, when he made that announcement, he did it with impunity and he thought he would just get away with it. And I think what's so great about this suit is that workers stood up and fought and took him on. And, when we talk to our members about, look, should we do this? It's a long shot. Maybe we'll win, maybe we won't. People were like, yeah, we're going to do it. I mean, we fought to get those federal benefits. We fought to get Biden elected. We worked hard for that. And then this one man comes along and boom, he's just going to cut it off. So of course we were going to fight, and we expected a fight back. And in fact, he got one of the most expensive anti-worker law firms in the country, Venable, to represent him, right? And spent taxpayers' money on that. And it is really sad, just how hard he wanted to fight to deny people some basic necessities that they need to live. That is really deplorable, and he lost the first appeal, he lost the second one, and then he had to admit, his Secretary of Labor had to admit that because they'd have to give a new 30-day notice to Department of Labor. Yesterday, they admitted they were going to have to continue benefits through the middle of August anyway. And then today he lost completely. But I agree with you. It's kind of shameful that, one would fight so hard just to deny people a couple of months more of benefits so they can try to get back on their feet, try to get a job, hope to get recalled. And this is all money that helps Maryland. This is federal dollars that's going to pour into Maryland. I think they estimated $1.5 billion. It helps businesses, so I think it was very short-sighted and sad, really.
Absolutely. And, for those of us who don't like Larry Hogan, it was a multi-layered sort of victory today because, unemployed workers won. The governor, who is a bad man. I'm speaking for myself here, Roxy. I know I'm not speaking for you. I don't like Larry Hogan. He's terrible.
Not me at all. Don't.
This also kind of goes to show you exactly sort of where we are still in the state of this pandemic. There's a lot of people out there still facing an eviction crisis in this state alone. Maryland is a very high cost of living place to live. So, to end benefits for people while they still have rent to pay, while their kids are home from school during the summer. As you said, extremely short-sighted and cruel. But I wanted to get into one of the points that the governor did make. And he claims that there are literally thousands of jobs available in the state of Maryland right now. But some of these industries are not as quick to recall their workers as others, namely the hospitality industry, the hotel industry. Can you talk to us about what workers have been telling you about their efforts to find work and how, even though they are trying to find work, sometimes they have not been successful?
Yeah. Look, you mentioned Ocean City. The main problem, we do represent some folks down there, and the main problem Ocean City is having is usually they import workers from other countries, which they haven't been able to do. And the wages are very low. And, it's not like people are going to leave their homes in other parts of the state to have a temporary low wage job for a couple of months, right? The other thing, the economic studies that were presented during the trial showed even if all the open jobs were filled, there still would be, there's more unemployed workers than there are jobs available. There still would have been well over 100,000 people not working. So, people are still waiting to come back to some of those hospitality jobs. And, there's going to be some changes, maybe some businesses aren't going to come back as much as others. And so there's always some, flow between what industries people are in. Also, there are still folks who are concerned about coming out into the workforce, who have kids at home, who, are not going to be able to get back to work until school starts again. So we've got all of that the next couple of months. So, there's still a lot of transition, and that couple of months will just give people a little bit more breathing room, like yourself, right? Either you're going to figure something else out, or I don't know, but we are having a job fair on February. If you want me to announce it for all of your, this end of this week, I could announce that if that's appropriate, because
please,
I do think,
by all means.
Yeah, so because a lot of the jobs are available right now are not full-time jobs, they're temporary jobs, or part-time jobs. So we are having a job fair. We're saying to folks, look, we're glad we fought for the benefits. That's excellent. We don't know where the economy is going to be in a couple of months. So, while you're waiting to get recalled to your job, maybe you want to try something else. Unite Here Local 7 has a multi-employer job fair this coming Friday at Camden Yards. There's going to be 5 different employers there, some all the way from seasonal jobs to full-time, year-round jobs. So you can look on our website, but please come on down to Camden Yards between noon and 5 on Friday.
Roxy, politicians and business leaders and corporations are really trying to hasten the return to normal, right? Whatever normal was. But people that have been working in this country, working in a variety of fields, understands that working the normal was bullshit, right? Because people were working for starvation wages, working without a social safety net, working without access to healthcare, especially in the midst of this pandemic. Looking ahead, it seems as though that workers have some leverage now because businesses are trying to fill positions, and it seems as though that pay is being increased in some places, and perhaps some other perks are being offered in order to entice workers back in. What do you guys see changing or happening as we get back into a transition again of normal? I didn't support the old normal. I don't know about the new normal either. But what are you noticing in terms of what workers are getting more now than they were pre-pandemic, if that makes sense?
Yeah, look, I think there really is some pressure on wages to go up, right? And on employers to pay more. And that's a good thing, right? We've been talking for a number of years now about $15 an hour. Even $15 an hour is hard to make it, right? But that's becoming the new normal in terms of a standard. So I was really encouraged to hear some of our state legislators and delegates saying, here in Maryland, we're scheduled to be at $15 an hour in 2025, which is kind of a long way away, saying, hey, maybe we need to move that up, right? So that is really important. But I hope also it's giving workers some hope, like when we take on these fights, that you can, when we organize, when we fight, we win. And that's what the union is all about. That's what Unite Here is all about. We organize people in hotels and restaurants and food service and casinos. And when we organize and we fight, we can win, right? A lot of the employers out there, there are some mom and pops out there, but most of the employers are big companies who even under the pandemic have been doing very well. I mean, even in the hospitality industry, even though people weren't working, they still found a way to make very good profits. So it's always a struggle, but it's an important struggle to have for people to organize and fight and share in some of those profits. So we are very encouraged by this decision and very encouraged by the message that people can stand up and fight and win. And I just want to say to all of your listeners out there, if you're in the hospitality industry, and you want to stand up and fight, we really want to meet you. We really want to work with you. We're building a union in Baltimore so that hospitality jobs are good jobs. And, I just have found in my career that, we can make a difference when we organize and fight. So many times people get maybe discouraged, don't think they can do anything, but the reality is we can.
And the fact that Unite Local 7 and its members and really all workers across the state were victorious in this really exemplifies that. Because Roxy, when these governors started to announce that they were going to end the federal subsidy for workers, in 25 states across the country, and when the announcement was made in Maryland, I really put my thinking cap on. I'm like, well, wait a second. Like, are we really without recourse here? Like, is there really nothing that can be done? What about our congressional delegation? Like, can they step in and do something? They didn't. You did, and you got it done. So I want to say, on behalf of everybody who has been collected unemployment during this pandemic and people who have actually needed it, and even before the pandemic started, thank you so much for the diligence, for not just sort of shrugging your shoulders and be like, hey, what are you going to do? Larry's a governor. We're just going to have to deal with it and accept it and adapt. But no, we did not have to adapt because it was wrong. He did not have any legal grounds to do it, and a court agreed with him. But had it not been for workers taking this challenge directly to the governor via a lawsuit, we wouldn't be here today. So I appreciate all of the work that y'all did. And on behalf of everybody, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for your voice.
You guys, we have been speaking with Roxie Herbekian. Roxy is the president of Unite Here Local 7 in Baltimore. As you heard, Unite Here Local 7 is having a job fair at Camden Yards this Friday. So go to the website and find them online and see if you can get some information if you are indeed looking for a gig. We've been speaking with Roxie Herbekian from Unite Here Local 7. So guys, congratulations to Marylanders. Congratulations to Indiana. And if you live in a state governed by a Republican and they cut off your federal benefits, please let the actions taken by Marylanders and Hoosiers, people in Indiana, please let that serve as some sort of inspiration. Take these niggas to court. Get your money. Don't let these GOP Kaisers. I don't know. Should I anyway? Yeah, maybe be nice, but yeah, don't let them fools just run roughshod over us, man. Because you cannot deny what Jesus has already endowed unto thee. And Jesus endowed my $300 of federal subsidized unemployment insurance. And man cannot deny what Jesus has laid asunder. So anyway, I'm just making up Bible verses. Y'all know how it goes. Anyway, thank you guys so much for everything. I want us to move along because I do have some other topics that I want to get to, namely, yesterday at the White House, there was a bit of a powwow at the White House. There was so much going on yesterday. Yesterday was sort of like an eventful news day. So this may have flown under your radar, considering that Joe Biden was making remarks about a variety of things yesterday, including voting rights, which is something he should be weighing in on. But Biden, Jim Crow Joe, the architect of the 1994 crime bill, which locked up untowards hundreds of thousands, possibly millions of potential mates for my generation, Gen X. That's a whole nother conversation. I'm gonna have that conversation with y'all one day. But Gen X ladies, how many fellas did they take off of the potential market for seeds and stems in their pockets? They put our potential mates in jail for nonsense, and that was all Joe Biden's idea. But Joe Biden is now perplexed about the level of gun violence in America. Now, where has Joe Biden been for the past 50 years in America? I'm not exactly sure why he is more perplexed by it now than perhaps in decades past. But my concern is, guys, before I share my concerns, let me share what Jim Crow Joe has laid out for his plan. Because he has a plan, and his plan is some trash. And it's the same sort of like warmed over liberal nonsense that Democrats always tote out to say that, hey, we have plans to solve these deeply troubling societal issues, and they look like a bunch of warmed over shit. So this is what Joe Biden had to say today. If we could take a look at B1. This is Joe Biden yesterday, ladies and gentlemen, at the White House, unveiling his gun violence plan with a host of other Black elected officials next to him. And the one you're going to see is DC Mayor Muriel Bowser, because Muriel Bowser wants to be down with the establishment Democrats so bad. So I'm sure she was very excited to be sitting next to Jim Crow Joe. But yeah, Tunde, if we could take a peek at B1, y'all, this is the gun violence plan.
Well, there's no one-size-fits-all approach. We know there are some things that work, and the first of those that work is stemming the flow of firearms used to commit violent crimes. And you and I have talked about this, Mayor, before. And it includes cracking down on holding rogue gun dealers accountable for violating the federal law. It includes the Justice Department creating 5 new strike forces to crack down on illegal gun trafficking, and the Carters supplying weapons to cities of New York, from New York to the Bay Area. Secondly, is supporting local law enforcement with federal support they need. Our strategy provides including funding for law enforcement through the American Rescue Plan for states, cities, and to be able to hire police and pay them overtime in order to advance community policing. Third, our plan invests in community violence and intervention. What we want to do is, when we know we utilize trusted community members and encourage more community policing, we can intervene before the violence erupts. At least that's been the consensus in our experience. And community violence intervention programs have shown to reduce crime in some cities by up to 60%. Fourthly, our strategy to fund other vital services like mental health and substance abuse disorder programs, job training, and summer job programs. And this is going to help prevent crime and support young people to pick up a paycheck instead of a pistol. And fifth, our strategy helps formerly incarcerated people successfully re-enter society with housing, jobs, and training, other support that up to now has been denied them. Somebody gets out of jail right now after serving their time, they get a bus ticket and $25. They end up under the same bridge they left. And we know this will help. This will make us all safer. The American Rescue Plan funds programs to help get job training, apprenticeships, and work experience so they can gain stability and security and a chance for a better life. There's a lot more to my strategy, but that's at the core. It's about coordinating at a federal, state, and local level. That's what ultimately we're going to talk about today.
Not Charles Boyd. We back? All right. Listen, Big Teal, I saw you in the comments. How about housing? That prevents crime too. Yes. Joe Biden just gave us a nice, lengthy, dare I say, verbally diuretic list of solutions that either have been tried before or was implemented poorly and unsuccessful. Like, okay, I'm just sort of going through this list, right? The first thing he listed was stemming the flow of guns. Nigga, how? How do you do that exactly? I mean, let's be clear. 300 million guns. I want y'all to, like, seriously, and I actually think it's more than that. Jean-Pierre, darling, would you do me a favor? Can you Google how many guns are there in America? My estimation is that it's north of 300 million. We're a country of 330 million people, okay? There's enough guns in this country to literally arm every man, woman, and child. So if you already have 300 plus million guns in circulation, right? Not even counting the new guns that are always being manufactured, because Ruger, Sig Sauer, Smith & Wesson, them niggas making the 2022 guns right now, okay? They making the new junks right now by the thousands. So what does stemming the flow of guns, what does that actually mean, right? Stemming the flow of guns from where? it almost implies as though the guns are coming from other places. But as we all know, this is the home of the gun. All the fly shit starts here. I know they got some fly plastic European shit, over there, Austria, whatever. But real talk, this is the gun capital of the globe. The Los Estados Unidos, the United States of America, is where we ship guns everywhere else, right? So what is stemming the flow of guns? What does that even mean? It doesn't sound like it means a whole lot. So that's number one. And mind you, that is at the top of his list. So if that's the first item on your list, I'm assuming that is your top priority. Okay? Second on the list, this nigga said cracking down and holding rogue gun dealers accountable. Show of hands. I know some of y'all live in very gun-friendly states. Where's Pookie Wood? I know Pookie Wood is all the way in Texas. Ladies and gentlemen, if you live in a gun-friendly state, can you share with us in the chat how simple and easy it is for you to go get a gun? And even made more simple in states like Texas and Indiana, if I'm not mistaken, which have basically eliminated any sort of licensing requirement to carry a gun. I don't even think they need a whole lot of licensing requirement to buy a gun. Dawn, you in Georgia. Rogue, thank you, Northern Witch. Yes, I share y'all's incredulity out here. Like, what? Rogue? Dog. Does Joe Biden not know where he is? Maybe Joe Biden has spent so much time in Delaware and in the DC area. Perhaps he is oblivious, dare I say, ignorant to the fact of how simple it is to buy a gun in this country. If you live in one of them states that give no fucks about guns, Indiana, let's see, Texas, let's see, Tennessee, let's see, Molly, can we throw Kentucky on that list? Does Kentucky count as a state that gives no fucks about who buys guns, how many, and how often? Be serious. I cannot stand sometimes to even engage with Democrats on some of these so-called policy solutions because unlike Trump Republicans, these motherfuckers are not operating from a plane of reality. Like, nigga, who are you? Who is this for? Rogue gun dealers. Nigga, get out of here.
Talk about that reality, Kim. So according to Genevieve, that estimate is actually 393 million. Can
everybody hear you, Tunde?
Yes, they can.
Okay, good.
If we're
say it again.
That's 393 million guns out there. So.
Right. Yeah. So there's enough guns out here for you, your spouse, and your baby to be holding like 3D. Like that's like 9-10 guns per household. And I understand. I know how this is distributed. There's a small minority of people who have 1,000 guns apiece, right? And then there's a lot of people who don't even own a gun. I understand that. But the guns are available to us. They have never not been available to us. This is why America is such a violent, dangerous country. Not exclusively for guns, because people get killed here sans gun. But the gun is always an option, and that's the problem, right? In America, the gun is always on the table, and it's always sort of lurking around, and you don't know when someone is going to exercise that gun option. So there's that. But back to Joe Biden's whole plan. Oh, and of course, wait, so that was number 2, to hold the rogue gun dealers accountable. Right. Number 3 was to get these 5 new strike forces. Lord have mercy. Kids, what did your ears tell you when you heard Joe Biden say we about to have these 5 new strike forces? I said, oh, niggas is about to get locked up in 5 places. As if they wasn't already getting locked up. Oh, now they about to catch federal charges. You hate to see it. A Democratic plan for anything, honestly, for any sort of societal problem that we have always involves a way to keep law enforcement in the loop, does it not? Joe Biden, in his Recovery Act for America, of course, he included brand new funding for police. Of course, Joe Biden is not about defunding the police. Joe Biden has been very clear about not being in favor of defunding the police. And again, Joe Biden sees, like other Democrats do, and Republicans also, that issues pertaining to guns are a law enforcement problem when that is not the case, right? The gun is merely the vehicle. The gun is merely the medium for the opportunity to perhaps do some fuck shit. Again, I am of the belief that gun possession is not a violent act. And I don't think that simply possessing a gun should land you a felony. If the gun is perhaps unloaded, or God damn it, you're not even using the shit. Why the fuck would you go to jail? That doesn't even make any sense. If the gun is somewhere minding its business on your person in your vehicle and it's not being used in the commission of a felony, dog, I don't think gun possession should be a felony. That is merely my opinion. And I know that is not a popular opinion among some folks, but I'm sticking with it. So I don't give a fuck. Where was I at here? Oh, yes. The 5 task force, because Joe Biden's got to figure out a way to get the cops some more money. And he talked about specifically right there, hiring more police, making it easier for police to have access to overtime. And he even threw in the obligatory community policing bullshit line, I guess, because Muriel Bowser was sitting there. I don't know why he did it. And then he went on at the very bottom of his gun violence checklist of his policy plans, talking about encouraging community violence interrupters, which is a good thing. But if you notice in a city near you, if they even engage with violence interrupters, the violence interrupters always get millions less than the actual police, right? So I know that he's not necessarily serious about that program. And then he goes on lastly to talk about substance abuse and mental health problems. And therein, again, always lies the problem. Housing and not substance abuse, but mental health issues. He needed to put them joints first. Them joints should have been number 1 and 2 on his little sorry list of what to do about gun violence. If people were housed and people had access to healthcare, period, but mental health care specifically, then I believe a lot of the so-called gun violence that we are dealing with would go away. I think over policing in communities. If you notice, communities where there's the most police, where police are a constant presence, where city councils may have afforded the city police department way more money than other city agencies, you notice that those tend to be very violent places. And for reasons that you can all probably assume, our elected officials are not interested in connecting those dots, right? They think that, oh, well, if 100 people got shot in Chicago over the weekend, then we need to hire more cops. Nigga, do you know how many fucking cops there are in Chicago right now? I don't think Chicago needs more police. I don't think Baltimore needs more police. I don't think DC needs more police. But hear them loud and hear them very clear, gang. Elected Democrats don't give a shit what happened in the streets last summer. They could care less that we really had the most sustained street movements cross country for weeks and weeks over the summer. And the rallying cry, the central rallying cry that was being screamed was defund the police. And the fact that it was an election year and Black and brown people elected Joe Biden. They elected them 2 Bamas in Georgia. Some other people won some races. And that these motherfuckers is going to fully ignore the sentiment of the streets that helped put them in their respected elected offices is something that you need to keep in mind for 2022. I feel as though who said something about St. Louis? Would you say Tony H? God damn it, the joint went away too quick. St. Louis City Police don't have to live in their districts either. Listen, none of these babies have to live in their districts. But ask people in Baltimore, where do the majority of Baltimore City Police live? They live in Pennsylvania, okay? They don't even live in the state. They live in PA all day, and they hop right on 83 and come right on down to the city and beat niggas up and turn around and go home and live in Lancaster County, happy as shit, eating all the overtime. But gang, and here's my thing. I am ashamed that I am not coming to y'all with more solutions, because I am so disgusted at the fact that, like, we are not going to vote our way out of any of this shit, right? Like, we could elect Joe Biden, Barack Obama, Kamala Harris, and we just gonna get more of the fucking same, shorty. We just gonna get a slightly better version of W. Bush and Donald Trump. Slightly. And that concerns me. Like, because this is us. This is our families. This is our communities. These are our children that are out here suffering due to this gun violence. And I admit that gun violence is a problem, but I also admit that, you know, you can't get somebody who's on crack off crack if they live in a crack house. You feel me? Like, how are you going to eradicate gun violence when guns are so abundant and available to everybody, right? Who said something about Nebraska? In Portland too, Kim, something like 84% of the live in Washington State. Who said that? Franny French. She said a large percentage of Portland police live in Washington State. Honey, they don't have any investment. Like, they have no reason to invest in the communities in which they patrol because they don't live there and they don't want to live there. Franny French said, don't want to quote Kanye, but Joe Biden does not like black people. No, but Joe Biden had the audacity to wag his finger at black people and tell them that they wasn't black enough if they wasn't considered voting for Jim Crow Joe. I said, nigga, we have been watching you. We know your whole record. What are you talking about, Jim Crow Joe? What are you talking about? The war on guns is going to be the new old war on drugs. And if you are a black person who believes in the Second Amendment, like myself, watch your back, shorty. Because tragically, even with situations like Philando Castile in the Midwest some years ago, who was a concealed carry holder, had his permit, told the cop he had his permit, he had his gun, and somehow Philando Castile ended up dead as a result of being stopped for a broken taillight. So we have to keep in mind that, number one, that the Second Amendment does not fully apply to us. Okay, there's that. And if you carry at all, or even if you possess any guns, this is where I'm worried. Okay, because again, I subscribe to the Second Amendment. I'm a woman. I'm a black woman out here. I triply subscribe, doubly, triply, quadruply subscribe to black people being armed out here. Got to be. If the Klan is armed, how you not gonna be armed? That don't even make no goddamn sense. But if the problem now is going to switch from pulling people over, trying to bust them for guns and drugs, and now is going to focus exclusively, for the most part, on guns, that's going to be targeted directly towards our communities. There's no way around that. And the way that it's currently targeted at our communities, Joe Biden is just making promises and pledges to ramp that up. So please watch your back and take note of all the elected officials that were at that White House tete-a-tete yesterday. Muriel Bowser was there from DC. The Democratic winner of the New York City mayoral race, Eric Adams, he was there. Sound like a whole ass cop. Just be prepared for these black politicians to sell us out again on this war on guns, as they sold us. I say us, and I mean us specifically, Generation X, the way they sold us out on the war on drugs, right? Because when the war on drugs, when all that legislation passed in the 90s, I was in high school. And it seemed as though the police wasted no time trying to fuck with us as young people. And in some cases, they were successful. I mean, so I know some people that, you know, did some time behind some drugs. Oh my God. I keep hearing something feeding back, Tunde. And maybe it's small, but maybe I don't hear anything. But it's gone now. It's fine. Thank you, Northern Wedge. Yes, I do celebrate my 2A rights. Who else said that they celebrate their 2A rights? Biden and his sellouts. Biden, yes. Honey, that's the thing. Joe Biden, like the sort of collection of like respectable Negroes around Joe Biden, I just look at the members. I'm like, enemy, enemy, enemy. Like Kamala, enemy. Who's the other Bama? Cedric Richmond, enemy. Who else? Fuck with Joe Biden. Val Demings used to be the cop. enemy. I don't trust them, dog. I don't trust not nail one of them. Because what is to distinguish to us that Jim Crow Joe is not on the same kind of agenda of locking Black people up as he was in 1994? I don't know that he's not on that same kind of time. There has been nothing about his policy positions that have told me that he is opposed to locking people up. I don't like it. I don't like it. But I want to tell y'all something that I do like, though. Even though the Democrats with a congressional majority in White House seem to be really incapable of doing anything positive to help people, or at least managing to accomplish doing the actually bare minimum, the very least they can do, about a few dozen Democrats from the state of Texas yesterday took a very bold move, I thought. And I don't think this is the only time that this has happened. I think this has happened once before, but I wasn't sure if it was Texas. I want to say it was perhaps another state legislature, but I'm sure you guys have heard this already. They hauled ass. They were slated to vote in the special session called by the governor in order to pass these very restrictive voting laws enacted by the Texas legislature. And these Democrats dipped. Now, I have questions. I saw that they were taking 2 chartered flights to Washington. Who chartered those planes? Because from my understanding, you charter a flight is expensive. And some of these state legislators, they don't make a lot of money. So who chartered that plane? I'm just curious. That's just me being nosy. King Kamashiro, thank you so much for your support, darling. We appreciate it. But the action itself, though symbolic, though likely not to move the needle a whole lot as to be able to prevent this legislation from becoming law, at least they have delayed it some, which I thought was glorious. But y'all, it was something. And I support something. What I like that bullshit that the squad and them niggas is doing in Congress, like, oh, well, we just had to abstain from the vote, even if we, okay. That's nothing. These Bama's in Texas actually did something. They were able to stymie the malevolent progress trying to move forward by these Republicans. I want us to hear from a couple of the legislators, some of the elected officials that were part of this, dare I say, band of rebellious lawmakers who said that we are getting the hell out of Dodge. Let me take a look, Tunde, if we could, at C1. And this is going to be 2 different people speaking. I apologize. I can't remember the name of the first guy. The second woman represents like the Fort Worth area. And I think the first gentleman is from, a bigger city in Texas as well. But let's take a look at those clips, Tunde, of 2 of the lawmakers speaking once they arrived in Washington, D.C. last night after they fled, literally hauled ass out of Texas for refusing to vote during the special session called by the governor.
Under the provisions of this bill, you could literally have a voter walk through a polling place, be greeted by the Proud Boys, and they can stand over your shoulder and watch you vote close enough to listen if you were to whisper something to yourself, or close enough to see how you were casting your votes. That's the environment we're talking about. There is nothing special about this special session. This is a suppression session. This is a session to suppress our voting rights.
And so we came today because we know that the Texas legislature, the Republican-led legislature, they're not trying to make these elections fair or free. It is not fair to require people to jump through hoops and fill out multiple forms just to vote. We're not free when people can be criminalized like Hervis Rogers for simple mistakes. We're not free when you promote the rights of partisan poll watchers over the rights of others. So we're not going to take it. We had the courage to take a stand And Congress, we need you to finish it.
Yes, they need Congress to finish that. Problem is, Congress doesn't have the might nor the muscle to actually do so. The For the People Act and the other voting rights bill that is pending, not likely to be signed, guys. And, you know, Shirley, I saw your comment and regarding how do people think they're going to combat the system of oppression by not voting? All of these laws are being passed to prevent you from voting. And I don't disagree with that, Shirley. Here's my thing. So I'm just speaking for myself here personally. Y'all, I vote out of obligation, right? I don't necessarily vote because I believe in the people that I'm voting for or anything like that. I vote because I understand it's almost like that Catholic guilt. I'm not Catholic, but it's that old Negro guilt that your parents and grandparents heap upon you for even considering not voting, right? So I go to vote in order to honor the ancestors, so to speak. I don't personally believe that electoral politics or voting for any one person is really going to change our situation. Our shit is structural, right? Like this shit is bigger than Nino Brown. This shit is bigger than voting. Like we got to do more than vote. But I don't disagree with you, Shirley. I feel you. Like the fact that people are being made to jump through all these hoops. And let me also emphasize that the laws specifically that they're trying to enact in Texas in terms of eliminating drive-through voting or requiring identification for absentee balloting and a number of other things, limiting voting hours and days. As much as that impacts Black folks, that is an impediment for disabled folks. Okay. And I know there's a lot of overlap in Black, brown, and disabled, and we need to acknowledge that and honor that. But this is also a big strike against the disabled community as well, making it more difficult for people who have either mobility challenges or other sort of disability issues to exercise their right to vote. I'm curious. Anybody know what the level of accessibility is in Texas for visually impaired people to be able to vote? Because I know in Maryland, it was some problems. And the blind folks had to get with the state of Maryland like, hey, motherfuckers, tighten up. But it is absolutely a discouragement to try to have people participating in the voting process. And from that same press conference, there was another state legislator there, a light-skinned Black woman wearing glasses. I can't recall her name, short hair. She represents Houston. I did remember that, the Houston area. And she said that she remembered when Lyndon B. Johnson signed the Voting Rights Act in the 60s, she thought then that the struggle would finally be over, that Black people had achieved this right to vote, this right to participate in our democracy. And that would be that. And baby, let me tell you something. These racists have not stopped attacking voting rights for Black people since 1965. They fought it the whole way, decades and generations leading up to the Voting Rights Act, and they have fought it every single decade and generation since. Because the ultimate signal that it's sending to Black Americans, to brown Americans, is that we are not citizens. We are less than in this country. We are still very much 3/5 in this country. So our ability to vote undermines and strikes a little bit of a blow against white power, right? Against the white power supremacist structure that we live in. If you have more niggas and other brown people voting, white people think that makes their vote count less. And maybe it does, because, you know, America has changed. We are in a different country than we were 100 years ago, even 50 years ago. But the problem is racism is not ready to relinquish that death grip of power and control that it has upon all of us, right? Shit, our first story was sort of an example of that. Those Republican governors that have decided that it is time for your ass to go back to work, right? They have made that decision for you. And if you don't figure out on your own that they are ready for you to go back to work, well, then they will take steps to strike against the things that are owed to you, right? In order to facilitate the behavior that they want to see come from you. I hate it here so bad. Like, just get me out of here yesterday. So I said that to say, ladies and gentlemen, even if what they did was wholly symbolic, I respect the fact that they did something. And it's not without consequence. Tunde, actually, do me a favor, pop up Greg Abbott, bitch ass. And listen, hold on. How is it that I just found out that Greg Abbott was a wheelchair user? I didn't even know he was a wheelchair user. I'm like, how are you disabled and this fucking terrible? But it just goes to show you, you know, make shit accessible and available for disabled people. But please don't think that all disabled people are somehow weak little angels, because they are not. Disabled people are just like everybody else, quite capable and able of inflicting harm onto other people. So fuck Greg Abbott. Fuck him and his fucking wheelchair. Tunde, let me take a look at that bitch ass nigga. Greg Abbott talking all the shit to the vacated Texas electors who fled the state in the middle of the night and ran to Washington, D.C. Let's take a look at that.
What the House of Representatives can do, the Speaker can do, is issue a call to have these members arrested. In addition to that, however, I can and I will continue to call special session after special session after special session all the way up until election next year. And so if these people want to be hanging out wherever they're hanging out on this taxpayer-paid junket, they're going to have to be prepared to do it for well over a year. As soon as they come back in the state of Texas, they will be arrested. They will be cabined inside the Texas Capitol until they get their job done.
Oh, what is cabined? I mean, I can infer what cabin means. I've just never heard anybody use it. They said they're gonna be arrested and cabined. That sounds like something you do to cattle or livestock. You cabin them? At least one of those legislators made an appearance on CNN. I don't have a clip, but I watched it, and she said that, first of all, Greg Abbott doesn't have the authority to arrest these representatives. Only the Speaker of the House can do that. And even arrest is overstating it quite a bit in terms of their ability to force these legislators to do anything. They can be detained, but they are not likely to go to jail. I'm curious, like, how long are they? Right? I'm curious, how long are they going to be able to like keep this up? Right? Yeah, I mean, this is obviously the righteous move, and this falls on the side of, you know, doing the right thing historically. But I'm sure somebody's dog got to get let out, right? Somebody got to pick their kid up from camp. Like, I'm just curious, how long can these Texas representatives stay out here in DC? And I get that they're here to try to put pressure on Congress to have Congress pass something federal that would supersede what the Texas legislature is doing. And again, guys, all of this Voting Rights Act, all of this stuff surrounding the tightening of restrictions on voting in mostly southern states, this is all directly from the Shelby County versus Holder Supreme Court decision. I believe it was 2013, when that bitch ass nigga John Roberts had the audacity to say that states did not need to use what they called pre-clearance. Section 4 of the Voting Rights Act, if memory serves, I do smoke a lot of weed. Y'all might want to verify that. I want to say Section 4 of the Voting Rights Act, the subject pertaining to pre-clearance, whereas a state that had definitely shown a propensity for voting discrimination via race had to come to the Department of Justice if they wanted to make any changes to their election procedures or election law, because they have demonstrated in their whole history that they are there to make sure that Black people don't vote. So when the Supreme Court gutted pre-clearance section of the Voting Rights Act, that just opened the door for all of this. And this is exactly what the GOP and Republicans were counting on, because all of this has to be litigated, right? It all has to go to court. Even in the situation in Texas, let's say they do pass the law. Well, the ACLU and other related organizations are immediately going to file suit, to declare it unconstitutional. But that is the goal, to try to keep this shit in court, to keep people off balance. In the meantime, to keep the restrictions in place until court rulings can be rendered. And at the same time, Republicans keep winning races, right? Or you have some shit like what happened with Donald Trump. It's kind of funny to me that Trump is still telling people that he won the election. Trump knows good and goddamn well he didn't win the election. What Trump knows is that he got enough dumb people that follow him that he can talk that shit and enough of them will believe it. Enough of them will believe it and get on social media and act a whole fool or show up at the Capitol, J6. Let me tell y'all, please, what are we doing for next January 6th? I say we have a party. Replete with all kinds of fun stuff. Somebody can dress up as the police and we can pretend to beat them. Ooh, wait a minute. Hold on. I like where this is going. What else can we do to celebrate January 6th? Because I'm telling y'all, henceforward, January 6th in this house, it shall be a holiday to be marked, the day where the enemies of Black Americans met on the steps of the U.S. Capitol of all places and did battle amongst themselves. Niggas nowhere in sight. It was glorious. Let's work on that. Let's figure out how we're going to celebrate January 6th, y'all. In the interim, root for them legislators from Texas, because they did something that your local friendly congressperson would never do. They actually stood up and took a stand and made a sacrifice and allowed themselves to be perhaps in a position where they would face consequences for standing on their principles, right? Some shit that Joe Biden ain't never did. Kamala Harris ain't never did. So root for them Bammers. If they up for re-election, where Pookie Wood at? Pookie Wood. If Pookie Wood get up in here, ask Pookie Wood who in that Texas delegation is the people that we need to watch, the players to watch and the players to support. Because I'm all for that. Yes. No, I'm not even kidding. We might, Tunde, Jean-Pierre, and Molly, that might be like our first live get together. I like this. I like where this is going. No, don't vote for me, Toby Swoley, because I be in Congress cussing niggas out and calling them niggas at the same time, even calling the white legislators niggas. And I would all the way fuck them up. They wouldn't know how to respond. I get into Congress, everybody getting called a nigga immediately. But no, that might be our first live event, y'all. What if we had our first live event to celebrate the events of January 6th? I want y'all to put that in your pipe and smoke it, literally. I'm going to sign off here, guys. We have come to the conclusion of our program. Oh, Jean-Pierre was sending me shit and I wasn't even paying attention. Thank you, Jean-Pierre. Oh, Jean-Pierre hit me with the correction. Shelby County versus Holder. It was Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act, the pre-clearance that got gutted by John Roberts and his bitch ass. It was in 2003. Wait. Now I'm getting confused. All the messages. So wait. Okay. So I'm caught up. Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act, 2013. That's what I thought. Because I was a wee baby. I wasn't paying attention to no goddamn Supreme Court in 2003. I was worried about getting high, hanging out with rappers. Anyway, don't vote for me, guys. You cannot. I'm not running for election because like I said, they wouldn't even talk to me up in that joint. They treat me like Marjorie Taylor Greene up in that bitch, right? like they wouldn't even speak to me in the hallways. They wouldn't even be nice to me at all in Congress. But I digress, gang. Thank you all again. I wanted to thank you all so much for your kind words, your condolences, your words of support about Breezy. It's getting better. Of course, it's very hard. It's been 1 week today since we lost little Breezy girl. And the house is very sad. Bagheera is still very sad. Smokey is sad. Everybody is sad. But we know that Breezy is in a better place. And the fact that you all let me come on here and express my love and dedication to my baby girl, it really means a lot. You guys are dog lovers and pet parents. And I appreciate, you know what I really appreciate, y'all? Real quick, I appreciate nobody and I mean, nobody came at me like, oh, what's all the big deal about? It's just a dog. Nobody said that. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. And I hope that we have evolved past that point in our society where we would, really kind of shame pet owners who lost their pets. Like, really, it's just dogs, not as a person. Nigga, my dog was better than a lot of people. Okay. Like, Breezy was out here better than a large chunk of humans that I am personally acquainted with. So don't ever, it's just a dog me, motherfucker, because my just a dog is way better than some actual people. So there's that. You guys rock. Thank you so much. Schultzy 100. What's happening? What's up, Ken? What's up, torches and pitchforks? Is Afraid Not in this bitch? You better tell Afraid Not. You better holler at me. Thank you, Don Gibson. Rain DeSud. Thank you so much, Chuck Diesel. You guys are fantastic. We will see y'all back here on Friday. And don't forget to join me tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Eastern time. I'm about to say Central time. Lord of mercy. Eastern time. Black Power Media, the Remix Morning Show. Come hang out with Kalanji and Jared and Kamal and me and Iyele and Dr. CBS and Layla and, of course, Doctor. So join us tomorrow, Black Power Media, for the Remix Morning Show, 8 a.m. Oh, I think Look My Nation might be back. Was Jackie on there this morning? Anybody watch? Jackie Lukman might be with us tomorrow, y'all. Don't quote me though, but I know Jackie is feeling better out here, so perhaps we get to have some Jackie Lukman tomorrow. That would be amazing. So we'll see you guys tomorrow, 8 a.m. Black Power Media. We'll see you back here Friday, 5 o'clock, niggas and non-niggas. I better see y'all asses up in here. I love y'all so much. Y'all are fantastic. Don't forget, like us, subscribe, share, do all that goofy shit to get us around the internet. We would sure appreciate it, okay? Talk to y'all later, man. See y'all later. Bye-bye.